Well, basically, I wanted to meet you to just kind of get a feel for things and see where we're at and kind of introduce and know where each other's coming from. And I guess I'll start by saying that, you know, when I first came out, my goal in some kind of fantastical world I had in my mind was I was going to chase off all the bad cops. And so that was the goal that I had.
Okay.
And I realized that in life, just like in the police department, there's going to be good people and bad people, and people that do good things and people that do bad things. So
People are people, aren't they?
people are people. So why can't it be? Remember that
Right.
song? So I guess that changed in my mind where my goal should be. And I'm more focused on now, I just want to see an OPA process that's functional for all parties.
Mhm.
You know, I know there's a lot of changes afoot in the OPA process and how things are being documented and such,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know that that's the change that I'm looking for.
Okay.
I guess I'm looking for more of a shift in approach to the citizens.
Okay. I'll let you keep going, and I guess I'll have a question on.
No, no, go ahead.
What do you mean by an approach to the citizens? Because I'm
Well,
not 100% I follow you there.
I got you. I understand that there's a lot of things in your investigations and the OPA process that's not going to be disclosed. And that makes sense. It's a private process. There's employment laws and secrecy and things like that. When somebody, I'll give you an example, and I don't know how much of these things you're aware of, and I'm not going to try to rehash those individual things, but I need to make references to them. The complaints that I filed about the use of force downtown May 5th. I don't know if you're aware of those, Sergeant Neff, Daubert, and them.
Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm aware of the
Okay.
incidents, yeah.
When I made those complaints, what I got back was a closed door, all good.
Okay.
And I was told totality of circumstances. And I guess that's where my problem started to happen with that, is the totality of circumstances. Okay, let's talk about the totality of circumstances. Well, no, we're not going to talk about that. I saw something that created serious questions in my mind, and just from the video, former law enforcement and people that I spoke to had questions of their own. So just saying totality of circumstances and leaving it there and expecting us to trust that that was the right decision, there's got to be a middle ground between what I'm wanting and what you're not able to give. You know, as far as helping us understand how the totality of circumstances affected something that we saw. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah, so you're wanting an explanation on what the totality of circumstances are.
As much as able to be given, but
So here's the thing about these is, you know, you talk about the personnel records and personnel investigations, and I don't call them secrecy, but there's laws and there's privacy.
Right.
Is what it's called,
That-
right? This is privacy. And that privacy goes to the same as citizens and victims and suspects of crimes. To get information pertaining to a crime, you gotta do a records request through the courts for the affidavit, do a records request for reports from the police department, which is limited information you can get, which is the Kansas Standard Offense Report. And that's got some redacted information on
Yeah.
it, you know.
I've
So
seen that.
those are all by privacy laws, you know what I mean, when it comes to that information. We don't discuss other cases. That's why I said in my email to you, you know, I can't discuss other cases that you're not a party to without the person that is involved being here. So I can't discuss the totality of the circumstances with you without the person that is here agreeing and, you know, making the complaint, saying, yes, I want you to talk to Michael about this. I can't, because that is the privacy aspect that is prohibited when it talks about personnel complaints, when it talks about crimes that have occurred, and things like that. So those are the totality of circumstances that you're missing. I'm not able to. It's not that I'm not hiding anything, but if you're not a part of that incident on somebody that's, you know, especially when you're dealing with, whether it's a kid or somebody over the age of 18, you know, like let's say, and I don't know anything about you, okay, just we get this all the time, is, let's say you have a kid that's in college, all right, and the kid gets arrested for DUI. It's inevitable a mom or dad's gonna call because, why was my kid arrested? You know, you shouldn't have arrested him, you should have read him the Miranda warning before you arrested him. Well, your kid's 22 years old and I can't talk to you about the incident in your kid. I get it's your kid, talk to your kid about it. They can get the information from an attorney or going to court. We're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, no, I
So
completely,
that's where, I just wanted to be
Yeah.
upfront of telling you that's where,
there's no ambiguity about the privacy for personal information and the investigation itself. I guess what I'm getting at is there's got to be more communication than just, we investigated and here's the result. Especially if there's a concerned citizen, not just myself, but, you know, take for example, a guy's out there and he sees his 22-year-old son get taken down rough the way that May 5th happened. And he has concerns about that. And he files the complaint. And then the complaint is handed back to him in the way that it was with me, where it just said, you know, we've researched this due to the totality of circumstances, exoneration, dismissed, not founded, whatever. That father's gonna have a problem with that.
sure,
And it's gonna leave a bad taste in his mouth with the police department because there was a closed door there. There should have been a little more communication explaining, okay, here's a little bit of why the totality of circumstances affect this. And I guess that's the main thing that I asked Captain Squire for many times. I said, what is in the totality of circumstances that would change the way I see this?
Right.
Because what information do you have that's gonna make me see what you're understanding?
so, two things,
Mhm.
and give me time to explain them both, if you would, is on the incident with like the father, right? If the father wanted to come in and talk about it, I would say the same to him as I would to you. I can't talk to you, but if you wanna bring in your son, I'll talk to both of you. If your son is good with it, we can, you know, and the son gives me the, you know, the green light and says, yeah, let's talk about this. And we wanna watch the video together. We've done that in the past. A long time ago, I was our OPA, is what we call it, that OPA sergeant, and I would do that. Because I truly do want resolution at the end of the day for everybody. Doesn't mean everybody's gonna be happy, right? It ain't gonna change the outcome of the case. But there's parts of that where the dad's like, and without giving you the specifics, an incident where dad was not happy with something that happened, son ultimately didn't, it's the old, verbiage of, there's always two sides of the story's somewhere in between it, you know what I mean, you remember that? The son wouldn't tell him everything, and then when we watched the camera, now this was 8 years ago, when we watched the recording of it from the in-car camera, the dad was like, okay, thank you, sorry to waste your time, I appreciate it. Now he understood everything and watched the video and seen everything leading up to it, which is what we call the totality of the circumstances. When it comes down to court cases, okay, so that's how those situations are handled. It has to be the person that's there. Now, we can always take your complaints, right? The third party can always file a complaint. We'll always take them. But if we don't have the cooperation from the person that's involved, or they don't want to do anything with it, it's hard for us to do anything other than review the video, look at it, talk to those that are involved, and then we come back with a finding. Okay? It's always easier to have the anonymous person or the involved parties help us through the process, so we can get their feelings, get their perspective, get their understanding, get other things that you aren't involved with, right? So that helps us as well. Makes sense? And that's really what the totality of circumstances are. So when we talk about use of force, we're governed by Graham v. Connor. Graham v. Connor is a Supreme Court case. And I don't want to turn it into a lecture, but they use the totality of circumstances. And the totality of circumstances, do you have access to, real quick, do you have access to our policies online? Because we pushed them out. So there's totality of circumstances that are within our use of force policy that the court said that we should take into consideration when we're using force. Doesn't mean that we have to take all of them. It doesn't mean that we have to take one of them. It's just saying these are incidents that can go into the totality of circumstances. Prior knowledge, prior history, the events leading up to it, you know, the information coming in from dispatch, the officer's experience, the size of the person, is the person intoxicated, what level of resistance are they, what threat are they presenting to the officer, all that stuff is laid out in our policy without trying to turn it into that.
No, I've read the use of force policy and
And I'm sure you have. I just wanted
Yeah.
to highlight that. But really, the totality of circumstances is, you know, I don't go driving around and dream up calls for service. You know, I'm not talking about traffic stops or things like that. I'm talking about a domestic, right? I don't go out and be like, man, I really wish there was a domestic in
No,
this
I understand.
house.
It comes through the 911 center.
So it comes to the 911 center. They get the information, they push it out to the officers. The officers that are responding there get the information on their computer, or in extreme emergency situations, you know, it's involving a firearm or possible severe injuries or death of a person, they'll put that out over the radio. The officers get that. Then they go there and they have to take that information and assess it with what they are viewing at that time. So if they go there and, you know, the house is quiet, the lights turn off the moment the officer's knocking the door, that starts to build into, okay, something's going on here, right? No different than if you're towing a vehicle, sometimes you start building on what's going on with this vehicle, whether the brakes are locked or the transmission's locked up, you know what I mean? You're going off of your experience of what's going on. Then when it comes into the encounters, you know, we can't dictate every encounter that we have. You know, when somebody's high on drugs or alcohol or something like that, sometimes they're not always reasonable to deal with, and I'm sure you've dealt with them types of people on calls too, calls for
Yeah.
codes. You can't de-escalate somebody like that very easily. Somebody that's in a mental health crisis, sometimes they're hard to de-escalate. We try to slow those situations down to the best of our ability to gain compliance through communication if we can. Doesn't always happen.
Okay, let me, I just
But
want to.
can I finish real quick? So then we go with encounters, and then at the end of the day, when we get to both sides of the stories, or if we have to make that scene safe, meaning, hey, caller says there's firearms involved, and we're getting non-compliance, and, you know, people are being resistant, not maintaining communication with us, and not obeying some orders like, hey, show me your hands. I mean, you've seen the cop movies. We got to secure that person to the safest way possible, so that we're safe, they're safe, everybody that's involved is safe. Then we just transition through the call. That is what the totality of the circumstances are. And that's what it means, is from here to here, what is the entire totality of that incident that goes into it.
Okay.
And that's what the totality of circumstances means.
I'll give you an example of totality of circumstances. The shots downtown, the guy that the police chase where the Highway Patrol and KUPD were involved in shooting the guy at 19th Mass. Do you remember this? Okay. There was quite a bit of information given out to the public about that, about the totality of circumstances there. That, you know, the details of what he had done, what he was chased from, where he was, and all this, because there was a public concern.
Sure.
There were more details given out in that one case than a compilation of cases that I've tried to discuss.
Okay.
Now, you talked about de-escalation.
Yeah.
When the May 5th incident, when I walked up on that incident, 3 officers had a gentleman on his back, no resistance. They were talking, and he had talked about back injuries, okay? And there was never resistance. He never tried to fight them while I was there, and this is several minutes. In the use of force policy, one of the things it talks about is in that time, not, you know, we can't take something that they've done 3 weeks ago and take that now and use force on them without immediate cause. You know, am I correct that we can't?
Yeah, you don't take past history.
Right, it's gotta be an immediate threat. It's gotta be an immediate situation that requires that use of force. From my point of view, when I witnessed that, I saw absolutely no resistance from this man. They tried to pick him up. He hollered out about his back, didn't resist, just yelled out about his back being injured. It hurt, it hurt. They set him back down. The 3 officers just kind of waited around for the other 2 to get there. Within 20 seconds, they roll him over. Darbert goes knees down in the back that he had been complaining that was injured. And that, at that point, that was the only time that he made any physical moves, and that was because the knees were excruciating in his back. You could hear him cry out. Now, in that moment there, I saw absolutely no reasonable need for any use of force on this man, because he had been physically compliant for several minutes, for at least 5. And within 20 seconds of the 2 officers getting there, now there's 5 officers rolling this guy over, and it's the knees and the back that causes his actions, his physical movements. And the officers took that as resistance and applied more force. Now, when a citizen witnesses something where another citizen has been complaining about back injuries, not resisting, not being physical, not even being verbally combative with him, he wasn't even being nasty or anything, he was just laying there. To see an officer come in and put knees down in the back, and then the other officers reinforce that decision by using additional force when he physically tries to get the officer's knees off his back. I file a complaint on that, and I'm told totality of circumstances. My issue is in the moment, and in the threat was not there that justified any use of force. The man was physically compliant. He was not being verbally combative at all. He protested being arrested and complained about his back, but who's not going to say, man, I don't want to be arrested. I'm being arrested, why? That's normal. But to be told that the totality of circumstances excuse this, and then to be told that I can't be told anything about those totality of circumstances, I think that's not going to be well for an OPA process that's functional for the citizens, because that lack of communication there, it tells me that there's no point to me communicating with you.
No.
I mean, do you,
No, I would disagree with you on that, Michael. I always want to, these conversations are
but do you not understand the need
No,
for a little more information? Because I witnessed that, and maybe I'm a 50-year-old man, but what happens when it's a 16-year-old girl and she's traumatized by what she saw, and then now we're just going to say, well, by the totality of circumstances, this was all okay, and our officers acted admirably.
Right, so I'm respectful of your concern. I truly am. And you won't get pushback from me on taking your complaints and concerns, okay? But like I told you in the email, we're probably not always going to agree.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay as long as it's respectful. And as long as we can continue to have conversations,
Mm-hmm.
all right? Because I think conversations is the only way to work through some of this stuff. But you also gotta be respectful of the position I'm in. I totally 100% agree that, or understand, I don't use the word agree, I totally understand where you're like, well, I'd like to know more about it. I totally understand that.
It's not a like to.
Uh,
It's I cannot accept that our officers are not out there brutalizing people without knowing a little more.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm prohibited from discussing the totality of circumstances with you. I'm not gonna lose my job. I'm not gonna be sued. I'm not gonna be in violation of a state statute or any of that, just for that reason.
So how is it the 19th in Mass we were able to discuss so much of
Because
the totality of circumstances?
Those are different when it comes to the need of public safety with shots fired and the death of a person involved, or an officer involved shooting and things like that. Those are different than a person who is able to come in and make a complaint on their own regarding something that is not a public safety matter like this.
Okay, see now.
If that makes sense to
Okay,
you at all.
now where I have concerns is the fact that what I'm understanding is that unless the person who, how do I put this? I'm gonna put this in terms that you may not appreciate, but I
No,
need
that's
to
fine.
do it.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Unless the victim of the police brutality is willing to cooperate with the complaint process, a third-party complainant
No.
really has no impact.
No, not at all. Not at all.
That's what it sounds like.
It certainly is not the way it's intended. Always take your complaints, always take your concerns, we will always review them. It's just always better to have the person involved here so we can ask the opinion of it. I just can't share the facts of the case with you.
I'm not asking for the facts of the
But that's,
case.
but that's what I'm saying.
I'm asking
So
for an understanding of the totality of
that
circumstances.
is, unfortunately, that's what I'm saying.
Is
that
one of those
is-
totality of circumstances the fact that the man had been known as somebody who would cry out about an injury without having one?
Again, I don't know what, I'm not here to discuss old cases with you,
Okay.
okay?
I'm not
just-
trying
I'm
to
just-
discuss
no, I
an
know.
old
I
case,
just-
but
I
what
wanna-
I'm trying to get to is the closed door on the totality of circumstances is not gonna be good for the community impact with the OPA process. And with all the things that we're seeing and the things that I've seen in your own documentation shows an OPA process that is closed-minded in most cases when it comes to the citizenry.
So, the totality of the circumstances of the facts of the case and everything that goes into it. And I can't share that with a third party that's not associated, it's an onlooker. I just can't. That is the facts of a case. There's discovery issues with cases that may be pending in court. There's open records request processes. There's all of that stuff that I'm just statutorily, I can't release that.
How am I supposed to have witnessed what I witnessed?
Uh-huh.
And witness the compliance of the man, witness the non-aggression, heard him talk about his back being broken or injured. How am I supposed to just accept that the totality of circumstances made that okay? How do you expect me to just walk away and think, sure, they did the right thing?
So unfortunately, that's probably just your perception. No, well, I guess where.
And see,
perception
here's
is-
that,
No,
here's
I'm
that
saying-
hold on, because Squire had done this perception thing with me too many times, and this is not perception, it's not opinion, it's a matter of law, okay, and it's a matter of your own policies, and I'm sorry if my tone has changed a little bit, but I'm getting a little frustrated with it doesn't, your own policies dictate that the threat must exist. Okay, now I witnessed a person providing no threat, providing no immediate danger to anyone, period. And he had force used on him without any threat existing. That is against the Lawrence Police Department policy. So this isn't about opinions, it isn't about perception. I witnessed something that by the letter of the law and by the letter of your own policy, this went against policy directly. And I'm being told totality of circumstances makes that okay and you can't discuss the totality of circumstances. That is why there is a trust issue. Now, we talk about trust, and this study that came out indicated a lack of trust among the police department of city leadership, the direction the city wants to go in, and a lot of the citizenry. You guys don't trust us, we don't trust you, and the totality of circumstances are just what they are. Where are we gonna go with this?
That's where I was trying to go with the perception thing, is, and everybody has their perceptions of everything, right, in life. But it really comes down to a trust process, is that's where I say coming together and having conversations, being respectful of each other, right? Not shutting each other down, to have these conversations and open dialogue. Hopefully we'll build trust. That you can say, you know what, Major Cooper seems reasonable. He understands every time I bring a complaint to the Office of Professional Accountability, he's open to doing this. He's an open channel of communication to receive these concerns from you. Because not everyone's probably going to be a complaint. You may just reach out and say, hey, what's the deal with this? I'm telling you right now, they will be received and they will be looked at.
But
Okay.
that's no more than I've been told in the past.
But here's the thing, sir, is
You can come in my way.
I can't discuss totality of circumstances with you if you're not the involved person of that incident. I can't. I just can't. It's a thing I can't do. We don't.
So I witnessed.
I can tell you right now. You say you don't want dirty cops. Guess who doesn't want dirty cops? Probably more than you. Me. You want to know why? Because they make me look bad. And I find integrity be my first core value. I don't like liars, and I don't want people that are gonna make this profession harder for me than what it already is. I don't want a dirty cop. Do cops make mistakes? Absolutely, because people are people. You've made mistakes in your business, in your life, and things like that. People make mistakes.
People are people.
I'm going to hold them accountable to the best of my ability. Now, there's sometimes it's just, you won't be, and that's what I say, you won't be, I don't, other than just saying you won't be satisfied, my hopes are that through the course of the conversations that we have while I'm in this position, that you can say, hey, I'm not really satisfied with how it was handled, but I trust that you at least dealt with it accordingly. You know, that's what I'm hoping.
And I hope we
really
could,
hope so.
I hope we could get there, but I will tell you that when we have situations, and I'm gonna leave the May 5th one alone after this. When we have situations like that I witnessed, that by the black and white of the policy, what I witnessed went against policy, I don't know that we can just, you know, that one's not one where we're gonna be friendly over, because there's got to be more discussion, because you guys actually work for us,
We are, you guys.
you know?
Cops are citizens.
I understand.
Don't view us as different. Cops are citizens.
Okay. I agree, however, you know, the public service aspect of this means that you need to win the community. You need to have the community on your side. And it would be a lot easier to do your job when you have the community on your side.
I don't disagree with that.
You know, there have been situations where I could help out with Lawrence Police and I drive on by because I just don't want to deal with it. Now, I would hope that over time that would change, but has there been any change as far as what's required of officers on the street when it comes to medical needs of suspects or subjects?
We got our policies. I mean, I don't know. That's a broad question. I guess I don't know what you're asking.
Do officers have the discretion of whether or not to call medical when somebody complains of a medical need?
It depends on what that medical need may be, right? If they say, hey, my shoulder, I had shoulder surgery and wash my shoulder, they don't have to call a medic. If they say, hey, your handcuffs are too tight and they can loosen the handcuffs, they don't have to get medical treatment. If it's a clear injury that was prior existing that needs medical treatment or was caused during the apprehension of the person, they should either call for the medics or take the individual to the hospital for
Okay.
medical treatment.
On August 29th, that did not happen. At 1607 West East 27th Street, Adil Qasim, I'm not going to try to go into the details of the case, but there was no medical called after a violent takedown.
Okay. Do you know if the person was taken to the hospital?
No, the person sought medical care after they were released from jail.
Okay.
They were taken directly to the jail and never.
And have you made a complaint on this already?
Captain Squire wouldn't discuss this and wouldn't allow me to make a complaint on it because one had already been submitted.
Okay.
But my concern is the medical aspects of the job and the fact that there are going to be times where medical needs to be called and the officer doesn't, I don't believe officers should have that discretion of when that is, as much as it seems they do. Because when we have a subject that goes down hard enough that they're bleeding and the officer's bleeding, I would think a bus would come and check everybody out.
So generally though, it's one of two things. They'll either ask for an ambulance to come or they'll take the person to the hospital,
Okay,
is what they'll do.
so one or the other?
I mean, there is no other option, right?
There is no other option?
Not to get medical treatment.
Okay.
To get medical treatment is what you're asking. They
So
would
they-
either call the ambulance or they would take them to the hospital.
Good. So then taking them directly to jail would be denying medical?
Just depends on what the situation is.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on, is there complaints, is there visible injuries?
Visible
The
injuries.
jail is going to refuse anybody with physical, visible injuries. If you have, like if I arrest you, right, and I take you down and you cut your forehead, and you're bleeding, the jail is going to require you to be cleared through a medic first, before they can even take you. That's their policy.
So I would think that a
If you
punctured
show-
elbow and a sprained wrist,
If you show up with injuries and you're like, man, my, whatever hurts, it's hurting really bad, and I need medical treatment, or whatever the case may be, and you're telling, the jail staff before you get booked into jail, before you even get accepted to jail, they're going to deny bringing that person in.
Okay, and I'll just leave this in your hands then, in the case of Adil Qasim, I don't have a case number or
I don't even
anything.
know what you're talking about.
Okay, do you have any, are you recording?
Mhm.
Okay, so you can go back, it's August 29th, it was on West 20, or East 27th.
Is this a video that you?
One of them, yeah, it's up. But there was a takedown off his porch onto concrete, put in the car. I questioned whether the officers had called medical. I was ignored and told that all answers from the media would be provided by supervision. And I spoke with Adil the next day and asked him whether he was given medical, and he said no, never. And when he did go see his own doctor, he had a puncture in his elbow and a sprained fingers or wrist, and the officer had bleeding knuckles. So,
Well, if the officer chooses not to give medical.
and
that's
that,
not gonna help.
but it's evidence of the actual violence of
Well,
the
so the
situation.
body cameras would show that.
Right. So what my concern that I want to leave with you there is that we had this violent takedown, and obviously there was some kind of breakdown, because you're saying that medical should have been checked one way or the other, either bouncing at the jail, somewhere in there.
Well, in all fairness, don't leave out the part. If the officer knows about it or is told about it,
Okay,
right? Like if I don't see your injury, like if I take you down and let's say you tweak your shoulder, right? And you don't tell me about it, I don't know about it.
okay.
I mean, I can't see internally what it is.
Are,
So I just want to throw that out there, that if I don't know about it as an officer, I don't know about it.
if you have an arrest where you've taken somebody down violently, and I use the word violently, I mean it's a physical
Yeah, I
use of
understand.
force,
It's not a
throwing them
simple-
down, right?
It's a control.
Right. And you've gotten injuries.
Okay.
Isn't it prudent for the officer to think, well, hey, I got some injuries out of that, maybe I should check the suspect?
It just depends. I mean, every situation like that is different, in the fact that you may land on top of me and that's what the injury's from. The injury may come from, I'm on my back and I'm got a hold of your arm and it's on the back of my head. Well, I know you ain't gonna have nothing.
I get
You
that.
know,
but
so I
in-
don't wanna sit here and say every situation.
Well, let's
like
narrow it down,
this.
let's narrow it down and say then, let's say we're taking somebody down off a risen step onto concrete, and you end up with scratched up knuckles, and you both hit the ground, you know all this,
Did-
would you not think that, okay,
Would-
I ended up with some injuries, maybe I should check the suspect?
Sure, would I do that? Absolutely.
Okay.
I would look to make sure.
And you're the kind of officer that I would want to see out on the street, and that's what I'm getting at, is that we have some officers out there that seem to be not concerned about a suspect as much as they should be, and a suspect is not guilty yet. They're not guilty until they're done in court, so we need to treat them with the respect that every citizen is deserving.
Right. And Michael, that's why I say, I will always take your concerns.
Okay,
Okay, I will always take your concerns. You may not always be satisfied with it,
and
but
I
that's why
understand.
I want to build a trust thing with you,
and,
to where you can say, you know what, I have somebody at least hear me out. Somebody I know is at least looking into it, but again, I'm gonna fall back to, I'm not going to discuss in details what happened.
I get you.
Because
And-
I got a life and that I gotta live for my family, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna ruin my career and be sued and terminated just because
No,
you want
and
something.
Casey, you don't need to keep reiterating that, I get that you're not gonna do that, and I guess my concern is just the medical aspects and the concern for the
Absolutely.
suspects.
If somebody is injured or complains in detail about an injury, or we see an injury, they should get medical treatment from an ambulance coming to wash them off, put a Band-Aid on them, whatever the case may be, or in other situations, taken to the hospital.
Okay.
Okay? Because I go back to, the jail is not going to
Right.
take somebody that is complaining. If somebody had a puncture wound to their arm and they're bleeding, the jail's not gonna take them. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Not without being signed off by
Not
an
without,
EMT.
not without the paperwork, no, not even
Okay.
from an EMT. They will require the paperwork from a doctor.
Okay,
Now, you show up and it's a little cut with a Band-Aid on you.
right,
Fine, but a puncture wound's a puncture wound. That's probably bleeding all over, and what they don't want is they don't want diseases
Biohazard and all that.
and all that in the jail.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't know that about the jail,
Yeah,
and,
they are going
that
to-
makes me feel a little more comfortable with these things, because knowing that the jail has a responsibility as well that's separate from yours, that's a check and balance that I'm good with.
and it's the same thing for overly intoxicated people. If I'm arresting somebody that's passed out behind the wheel of a car, right? And, I mean, they can't even hold their head up, they're so intoxicated from whatever it is, but let's say they're stopped at a stoplight at 23rd and Iowa, and they're just passed out, slumped over the wheel.
Mhm.
I can't do anything with them because they can't stand up. That's a medical emergency first
Right.
and foremost. They have gotta go get medical treatment before the jail would ever accept them for driving under the influence.
Okay.
They have to, they will not accept those. So there is that checks and balances for a lot of stuff.
All right. Just a couple more small things. One of the things that I've seen out on the street quite a bit is the nonchalant use of jail threats. Do this or I'll take you to jail, or do you want to be arrested? You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. And I know you say you don't do social media, same thing Squire said.
And don't do it at all.
I need you to understand that I am communicating with you guys through YouTube. And that's as a result of my past experiences.
Okay.
I submit on that channel, LFK Accountability, which I hope you're aware of.
I've seen the video you sent me.
Okay. On that channel, I submit both compliments and complaints. I've
Yeah.
highlighted Sergeant Barkley, I've highlighted a number of other people, so I want you to understand, I don't just hate cops. I don't just hate all LEOs. I know you guys got a tough job, but using that tough job to make all of us suspects is part of the issue that I have. I've had Officer Twite chase me around a parking lot trying to get a tag off my car because he's worried about everybody out to kill him. I've had several officers tell me that there's these people out there that just randomly want to kill cops. And I get that. But I can go back and say the same thing. I can watch videos all day long of cops shooting citizens. The idea of using that, the risks of the job as a means to turn every citizen into a suspect is part of the issue that I have, is that sitting right here right now, do you have any concerns about my intent?
No.
Okay, see now, this is a big change.
But I've also been here for 18 years and did 20 plus years in the military, and
Okay.
I can read behavior pretty good.
Okay, so, through everything that Captain Squire and I have been through, right up till the last moment, he doesn't know what my intent is. He has concerns about my intent. So I appreciate that you don't see my intent as being some kind of nefarious wanting to take everybody down kind of thing. We have been out filming you guys for over a year. It's been about 15, 16 months now. And as recently as July, I've seen officers treat somebody that was filming like a suspect and threatened to arrest her. And I just put up a video last night that gave it a little more detailed, but this was Sergeant Bradford. And I like Bradford. I think he's a nice guy. I've had many conversations with him. And that's why I titled the video, "A Nice Guy with Some Bad Habits," because I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's got a bad habit. And it's that use of, hey, do this or I'm gonna take you to jail. When you say that to somebody that's out there filming a stop and is not interfering or anything, do you understand that that becomes intimidating somebody out of their civil rights?
Well,
I understand the officer safety aspects, and I understand we need to give space and everything, but what I'm saying is that when you use a jail threat, when somebody's exhibiting a protected civil right, that's a violation.
it's a protected civil right until it infringes upon officer safety. And without me seeing it, I'm not gonna speak upon it because I haven't seen it. You're right, I don't watch YouTube
Okay.
stuff, I don't watch social media stuff. Most of my time when I'm at home, I'm interacting with my family until it's bedtime.
Okay.
Whether it's doing spelling tests with my kids, math stuff with my kids, reading, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I don't get influenced by media, I don't get influenced by social media.
Okay.
Okay? I just want to throw that out.
I don't do
So-
Facebook, and the YouTube thing was never intended, Casey, I gotta be honest, I never intended to put all this stuff on YouTube. My intent when I first started was to make the videos, give them to you guys just to show you what was going on. And we highlighted good people and bad people back then too. It was the response that I got that put it on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah. Again, every situation's different, and you know that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and I only know, I'm only speaking on tows, because you're a tow company, I don't know your life history. Every car's different.
I've done everything.
But, I mean, every car's different, right?
Yeah.
It's, every incident you respond to, from towing cars, semis, trucks, breakdowns, rollover accidents, whatever the case is, it's never the same. It's never the same. And that's the way our calls are. And the moment that we go into thinking that everything is always the same, and I think of, his name is slipping my mind, who was the tow truck driver that was killed down in Iowa, and he had a vehicle fall on him? He was a Lawrence guy.
That was Kevin. That was down in Baldwin.
Yeah, it's Baldwin.
Kevin Rash.
Right, so, you know, you just think of tragedy, things like that, where like, well, you fall in a routine habit of.
And that's exactly what he did.
And complacency kills. It kills in whatever line of work that presents some kind of danger to it.
Mhm.
That's where cops, tow truck drivers alongside of I-70, firefighters, military people, you're always in a state of hypervigilance when you're out there doing your job,
Mhm.
right? Because you're always thinking, okay, well, if I take 2 steps back into the highway and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm busy, I may not see a guy with his headlights off until it's too late.
Mhm.
You know, so gotta kind of understand everything. Michael, I'm a very reasonable person.
And I can see that.
I do not get worked up about much. If somebody gets me worked up, boy, they've tried. They have really tried.
This conversation right here has been good. And I had some good conversations with Sergeant Ernst when he was in here on his own.
Yeah,
So-
again, I treat people like people. I will treat you with the utmost respect, because that's how I would want to be treated.
Well,
But the moment I don't get respect back, or if I'm getting yelled at or called names, I'm just gonna end it, because, you know, me screaming and yelling back at you is not the right way. It is, I truly believe in the 24-hour rule, that if I'm mad, we gotta separate,
Mhm.
and then we can come back and talk later. You know, that's kinda how I am with my wife. I'm not gonna argue with her right now, we'll talk about it later. And we both have that same agreement, and that's how you make things work.
Yep.
But I wanna leave this conversation as this. Only way to get you to believe in the police is to build trust. And to build trust needs to start with me. You ain't always gonna like my answers, but I hope you get satisfaction out of saying, you know what, at least I have somebody that will listen to my concerns, and I can believe that if they say, you know, Major Cooper says they are going to watch this video, they will watch this video. A complaint is a complaint. At the end of the day, I have to take, you know, what you're calling the totality of the circumstances, the totality of every circumstance, and look at it to come out with a finding. Whether it's a policy violation, a deficiency in policy, a training issue, or there was no policy violation. I've got to look at all of it, right? And I go back to, not every incident is the same. Policies are policies to give us a guidance and guidelines to how to operate. There's not a whole lot of, you will always do this, you will always do that, you shall always do this. A lot of that is ingrained in us in case law and policies, okay? So when you see a lot of shalls and mandates like that, that use the absolute shall to the T, a lot of those are backed by law that we have to do.
Right.
Everything else is, that's you? Everything else is based on practices and guidelines and expectations. So I just wanted to let you know how our policies are.
Well,
Yeah.
and we're probably not gonna agree about some things, but I
Sure.
gotta say that this meeting has told me that you're at least somebody that I can sit down and talk to. I know that you've probably heard that I'm this crazy wild person and all this other stuff. I don't even know what people say, but I know there's some things out there. I give what I get. If you want to disrespect me and talk down to me, you're going to rile me up and I'm going to get in your ass. But if you want to treat me like a human and talk to me like a person, then I'll give the same back to you.
So, to be completely transparent with you, nobody really talks about you.
Okay.
I mean, if you show up on a call, somebody will be like, hey, Michael was on this call last night, you may make a complaint.
Well, I know
To me.
there's,
But people don't, across the department, and I'm being 100% honest here, I've never met you before. I've never met you before. I've never looked you up, I've never saw it. People don't go around and talk about you.
maybe not, and this is the other
So
thing.
I just wanted to say that.
You know, and this is something I just realized I forgot to mention. You know, you guys in the command level, you have one pattern of thought. You see the department one way. The guys on the street, I think they see it a little differently.
Sure.
And I think that when you guys talk nice and tell us the things that we want to hear, that's great. And I'm sure you believe these things are actual, what's going on. But there's times where that intent, the intent that you're conveying, is not out there on the street.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and I'm not trying to make excuses at all. I mean, you know, we're 150.
It's the heavy-handedness that I'm after.
Well, it's a 154-person sworn agency, right? People are gonna make mistakes. They're gonna make mistakes.
Own
And
them.
we're gonna,
Own them.
And
when you guys own your mistakes, you make friends. If Bradford would have stopped right there, and instead of digging in his heels and saying, I didn't say that, it's all on cam, I didn't say that, we called him out on it right there on scene and said, no, dude, we got you on camera. I finally, and the last video's up and you can watch a little bit, I finally got him to tell me, well, if I said that, I'd have to go back and look, but I'm thinking of 13 different things. And I told him, I said, just because you're thinking of 13 different things does not give you the ability to manhandle citizens.
yeah, there is no,
But if he would have just backed
Yeah,
up and said,
so-
hey, man, I'm sorry I did that, let me back up a little bit, I would have been totally good
I
and
get
walked away from it.
I get it.
But the immediate digging in the heels, no, I didn't, no, I didn't, no, I didn't.
Again, that's human nature. That's not taught in the police academy, I want you to know that.
I know.
You know, I mean, owning, extreme ownership is hard to come for anybody. That's a small percentage of people in this lifetime that will take extreme ownership of everything that they've done wrong.
And it's something
And
that
you
I
know that. And
I do try to do that, and
It's
that's
hard.
why you're gonna see videos
It's
where
hard.
I've gotten out of line.
It's hard. It's
You
hard
know.
to take extreme ownership. It's hard to take feedback when we don't want to take feedback. You know, I mean, again, I always joke that you can't say anything bad to me that I haven't said about myself.
If you're your own
So-
worst critic, you're gonna be a little less,
I mean, yeah,
apt to be criticized, I
yeah,
believe.
So
Some-
we make mistakes. My philosophy is this, and this is, you know, and again, you're gonna question me on it later at some point. It's inevitable, right? But again, I'm hoping to build the trust in this. Is I believe the only way to maintain discipline, and I'm not talking punitive discipline. This comes from the military in me.
Mhm.
Right? I'm retired military after 20 plus years.
Army?
Is the only way to have discipline is through appropriate and reasonable accountability.
Exactly.
That is the only way. That is why the military for centuries have been able
Yep.
to maintain a rank and file that is respectful of everybody that they serve, this combat that they're in, and the government as a whole,
Mhm.
right? That's the only way that we can get through this. And I believe the Lawrence Police Department is a great police department. Do we have room to make improvements? Every day, 100% have room to make improvements.
And I'm gonna tell you, as somebody who is very familiar with some of the worst police departments in the country, Lawrence is not even close to that.
No, absolutely.
And I know this, and that's been the frustration within me, is that I didn't wanna go try to bash Lawrence Police online and stuff, but I couldn't get anybody to listen to me.
Right, right. And you know what, and some of your concerns, Michael, they may not be policy violations, they may not be law violations, right? It may be something where somebody just needs to go talk to the person and say, hey, knock that off. You know, you don't need to be rude to somebody or whatever the case may be. But then at the end of the day, because you're not always getting all the information. I mean, that's fair to say. You don't get 100% of the information. That's the totality that you're missing and you're seeking. and I respect you for trying to get that so that you can get internal resolution inside, say, you know what, this all makes sense.
If I could go back on the May 5th incident, I think this would be great for me to be able to do, is to go back and publish a video saying, hey, this is why this was okay. Because right now, there's a lot of people out there that see it that don't think it was okay.
I get it.
And that's where I think that there's a little bit of communication need here, because I'm in a position to actually help sway some opinions. And I mean, I know you don't follow social media, but I'm coming up on 4,000 followers now.
Sure.
And
So, totally understand
I can
your
help.
point of view.
That's why I try to highlight the good ones, is to show that Lawrence isn't bad.
I totally 100%
So,
understand your point of view. I'm not trying to sit
Okay.
there and make you out to be crazy. I hope you don't believe that I am. I
No.
100% get your point of view. You know why? Because I have family members that aren't in law enforcement. I'm the only law enforcement person in my entire generation of family
And do
members.
they
that
tease
goes
you
back
for it?
decades. Yeah, actually they do.
ask you
They
what the
do.
hell you were thinking.
They do. You know, I mean, I'm the black sheep of my family of going into law enforcement. It's something that I'm also, outside of a grandpa and my dad, I'm the only one that's ever served in the military.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, I think it's just the duty to serve a community and this nation is deep within me, and I always want to do right. Doesn't mean I get it right 100% of the time. And that's why I go back to, we are a very good police department. We have room to improve every day, right? And I mean, it's no different than the Chiefs. The Chiefs have room to improve, obviously this year a lot, but when they won the Super Bowl, they had room to improve every game and every play. Doesn't matter what your profession is, you always have room
Always
to
have
improve.
I agree.
So, I understand your perspective
Okay.
of where you're coming from. I want to be honest with you on that, because I do. I got neighbors, I got friends, I got family, but they ain't in law enforcement. And they're always asking about stuff, you know, that they see on NBC News, CNN, Fox News. And at the end of the day, what I tell them is, I'm coming at it the same as you, is I don't have the whole story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's two sides always, I know.
You know, I mean, that's really what it is. I don't know. I don't know why that person was shot. I wasn't there. Does it look bad? Sure. Is it awful but lawful? Yeah, probably. But we gotta let the process play out. And
I like where we're at right now. The last thing I'll say is I think you'll hear that I'm a hothead. I can be a little bit tempered. The one thing you'll never hear about me is that I lie. I'm honest to a fault. I'll tell you the truth. You ask me a tough question, I'll tell you. So, when I come to you, it's not out of any kind of vengeance. It's not out of any kind of revenge against the police or anything. I got started because I didn't like the way I was treated.
I know. I remember the day you came in on an incident that you made a complaint on. Or at least that was the first time I heard your name. I was on patrol. I was a patrol major or a captain at one point.
Really? A day I came in here?
Not in here, but I think it was one of the incidents you're talking about. Is this where you had an encounter with Larry Lindsay? Is that the incident you're talking about? Is that's the first time I ever heard your name?
Oh, were you
And
on duty the day that he was at that accident scene?
No. But I was a patrol captain.
Did he retire?
No.
He told me that day he was 3 days away, and I figured he probably did.
No. But without reacting to that, I mean,
Yeah, no.
that was the first and,
Okay.
you know, I'm a never returning, so.
I know.
I just figured that was the incident you're talking about. But,
No,
yeah,
I
here's what I would say is, hot-headedness gets nobody anywhere.
and I'm learning.
You know, and don't,
This situation is responsible for a lot of personal growth in me.
yeah,
And I'll be honest with you, because it's taught me patience with the system. It's taught me a lot of seeing the other side of things, and it's taught me a lot of spinning my wheels against a brick wall isn't effective.
so before you leave, I'll walk you out there and, I'll go to my office, cause I don't wanna leave you in here in case somebody needs this room, but, I'll walk you out there and then I'll go print off the new policy for personnel complaints. It actually came out yesterday. I've been working on it since March.
Okay.
I'm our policy guy.
Okay.
I have been for a long time, because I believe that we should have good policies. I sought out the Lexipol policy, which is a best practice and based on state and federal law. So anyways, I've been working on a new personnel complaint policy that outlines I feel like it makes the policy easier to follow.
Did you pull from Lexipol and then modify, or is that what you're doing?
It's both. It's Lexipol, and I used a lot of our old stuff.
Okay.
The policy that you know, is what
Yeah.
I'm calling old, and putting that into the new policy that I'll give you for your review. It literally just got pushed out yesterday to all the department, and it'll get updated at some point on our city website, but I just wanted you to have it so that you can have it,
I appreciate it.
and you wanna understand our processes. But man, I would tell you, just for everybody involved, just film. Don't become a hothead. You're more than willing to film this. Please don't, for everybody's safety, don't get involved. You know what I mean? Like, don't go up and try to interject.
No, I know.
'Cause I don't want something bad to happen to somebody.
No, I
Because
never do. And even with that situation May 5th, you know, I was vocal. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I'm not going to get involved in it.
Okay,
No.
again, I don't watch them.
I'm ex-military. I've stood some watches. I was in the Navy. Were you Army?
Air Force.
Air Force?
Yeah,
Air
security
Force.
forces. Go ahead.
You guys in your 6-week boot camp.
That's right, but I also had 9-month deployments to Afghanistan, 3 of them.
Refuelers?
So, I know. Yeah,
No, I was an AVH on the Independence.
Okay.
Aviation bosun.
okay. Yeah.
No, I like where we're at. I feel like that you're somebody that can, honestly, I think that you're somebody that can be trusted to handle this department. My issue is I just, the justifications, I have so many questions.
I know.
And it's hard to walk away without getting those questions answered.
I'm very respectful and understanding, and I know, but I want you to be respectful and understanding that I'm not always gonna be able to provide those answers, because I just legally I can't.
Understood.
Yeah.
Last thing, there were some that were asked, I sent some concerns to the city after they were dismissed here, specifically the May 5th, and I think I escalated the August 29th, the rest of the deal casino directly to them instead of bringing it here.
And that's fine.
And I did that, that had nothing to do with you as your
Yeah.
predecessor. When those are done, I've been advised that there may be very little information come out about those. Are we at least gonna be able to find out dismissed, sustained, unfounded,
When you say we, what do you mean?
the public?
Oh, well, yeah, so annually, we do
I mean, individually, when the
so
investigation.
you'll get a letter, if you're the complainant on it, you would get a letter like you got last time.
Well, on these, I don't believe I'm the complainant. I think the city is the complainant, or the city commission.
Okay.
I'm gonna be.
Then they would get
And.
then they would be
getting-
told what the case is.
But what I'm
So-
asking is, am I gonna be able to, as a concerned member of the public who filmed the incidents, am I gonna be able to call into OPA and ask were these dismissed, unfounded?
Are you sure you were not the complainant on them?
My understanding is that, and.
So did you take it to the commission, the city manager's office, who'd you take
I
it to?
took it to the commission, who apparently referred it to Craig's office and
Okay.
then brought it here. Now, I'm working on information that I was told by a very angry Major Squire, who told me that since I wasn't the complainant, that, you know, he didn't need to take my complaint, they already had it, and I had no input, he basically dismissed me with prejudice.
Okay,
So, basically, all I'm gonna wanna know is, at the end of these reviews that were requested by the city, were these complaints in fact sustained, dismissed, unfounded, the 5 categories that
Right.
they can come out as? That's all I'm wanting to find out.
yeah, I don't know what the status of them are. Is that fair? I don't know what the status of them are, I don't know what they're,
No.
I know
All
what
I'm
you're
is,
asking.
At the end,
I know what you're asking.
will somebody
Yeah.
tell me this?
Yeah, I don't wanna sit here and say yes or no, one or the other.
Isn't
Because
that-
I haven't even looked at them, so I don't even know, because that would've been before I was in here.
Okay.
I don't know anything about them. That's why I don't like talking about stuff I don't know,
Understood,
because I never put myself in a box.
understood. You have my email address.
Okay.
If you have an answer to that question at some point, that's really all I'm looking for, is just an end result, one word.
I totally get it.
Okay.
Totally get it. Resolution solves a lot of stuff, right?
And I'm-
May not be the resolution we want.
I always
But-
try, and that's one thing that my wife and I have battled over the years, is I'm that instant resolution person. I need it right now.
Yeah. So,
And it never comes.
you know, the commission and city manager's office is always allowed to make a complaint. and express concern.
I did not like escalating there. I did not like feeling like I needed to, and I will
It's your
become.
prerogative. you know?
I understand, but we need to be able to use the chain of command the way it's intended to be used. You're a military guy.
Yeah. So, I'm a big process guy, you know, and if we have processes in our policies for the Office of Professional Accountability, I expect those to be followed by my office. I don't expect those to be followed by every citizen, because you're not part of our chain of command, as you said. So, if you make a complaint to the city commission and it comes to us, we'll take it, that's fine. We'll take it, we'll review it, and we'll follow our process to the best of our ability, and do the right thing. So, in communicating and investigating it, more importantly, right? So,
I appreciate your time. I'm not going to take up any more.
yeah, well, let me go print that off for you.
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor and hit those light switches? Thank you very much. I'll take you out here and then I'll go print.
Okay.
If you want to go wait in your truck, you can.
Yeah, I'll just go out here.
Okay. All right, I'll be right back out.
All right, sounds good. Casey, it was good to meet you.
Yeah, you too, Michael. Just give me about 2 to 5 minutes.
Sure. All right. Throw everything.